appreciate taking the time today. Just to give you a little background, like I just want to like reach out to like real composers that are like actually making money. They're not famous. You know what I mean? Like everybody gets into that trap, you know, like, oh, I got to be famous and I got to live in LA to make a living. And I mean, it helps, but I think we're proving it that you can be anywhere, you know?
Yeah, I think you can be anywhere. Yeah.
Do it.
I went to college out in LA and I thought I had to like stay out there after I was done, and it was just so expensive. I just realized I was going to be doing something else just to be there.
Right. I know you're working on a new project, right? Like I saw you streaming the other day about it.
Yeah, a few different things, you know, kind of, you're sort of in that in between where there's like a bunch of possible things, and then there's things you know you're going to be, but are maybe a ways away. You know, there's always that. I
now understand that being a freelancer. It's like, where's my next job coming? Yeah, so I totally understand. So so basically, we just get started then. So what do you do? Like, what is your job? I mean, I guess you're just a freelance composer. You do a bunch of things, I'm guessing. Yeah,
that's pretty much it. A freelance composer. You know, I do sort of whatever will bring in some sort of income. I do a lot of royalty-free stuff, you know, just to kind of keep something, you know, even when you're in between projects, it's nice to sort of have that library built up so that you're getting that licensing income a little bit. I have not personally found that that's enough to sort of sustain life. I know there's a lot of people that do that. I have a friend from high school. That's all he does is do royalty-free libraries, licensed libraries sort of thing. But yeah, unless you sort of, I don't know, unless you sort of are just exactly right for that market, it can be a little bit difficult. But then in between that, I sort of do freelance for clients. So those clients are usually a game development studio of some kind, usually a smaller indie one. Okay. I don't do a lot of work with really big, you know, AAA sort of developers. You know, and then additionally, every once in a while, I'll do like a student film or a small short film or something here and there, sort of to fill that out. So those are sort of my primary things. So
excellent. Yeah, that's the one thing I try to tell people is, you know, you can still make a living by doing multiple things and not being AAA or doing Hollywood blockbuster films like everybody thinks. That no, you can actually make a living off this, and it's just getting started and how to get started. So
it's hard, and you know, my wife is a nurse, so that's really helpful for in terms of just my income is so variable sometimes. You know, you'll get a project, get a big payout for that project, and then you won't have something for 6 months, right? So that can be you kind of manage it. It's nice to have that little that help, to have her be just sort of in a steady, regular, normal job.
Right. Exactly.
One time I had a composition professor tell me that, oh yeah, that's why I married a nurse, so she could help me get my PhD or whatever. Right. So you know, there's an unorthodox piece of advice. You know, nurses in demand.
Yeah, make sure they have health insurance and all that good stuff.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a great example of something that's really useful if you can be in a relationship in this case where you get that taken care of. You don't have to go out and get your own health insurance, because I know that can be difficult and expensive. So
exactly. Yeah, that's what I'm definitely dealing with right now. So
yeah, it's hard. It's hard.
Oh, it is. It is. Hopefully all that stuff will work itself out. I'm sure it will. Give it time, but yeah, I think that's the most concern everybody has, is health insurance, and it should be, because it's even if you do have a job, it doesn't mean you're going to get guaranteed have health insurance. So
right, yeah. And I did a lot of, you know, I've in my life done a lot of like part-time jobs where, you know, that job's not going to help me there. So even if I was in part-time, I mean, I used to teach at a middle school. I taught some music there, and then I did private, you know, piano lessons at like a studio here. And, you know, that's great, but, you know, there's 2 part-time jobs. That doesn't help you with all that infrastructure that you normally get from a single stream income. So
yeah, for me, talking with other composers, that's what they tell me, because I reached out to them. They're like, oh yeah, you know how to play guitar, teach lessons. It's like, do it, wear multiple hats. But yeah, it's a tough life. You know, no one said this is easy, making money off of music, but it can be done.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, I mean, because, you know, the arts, man, like even when I remember being like, you know, when I was trying to figure out my life and what I wanted to do, and you'd say, oh, I want to write music. Everybody's just like, what? You know, it's like,
it's hard.
You know,
I mean, it's difficult, and there's a lot of competition. And it's competition from people, you know, who just know how to play guitar and want to make film music, which is awesome. It's also people with master's degrees, right, in theory and composition. So you've got that whole gamut. I personally find the people who, just sort of self-taught themselves are often the best competition. They're often the ones that you really have to kind of watch out for because they're very driven.
Because you're going to make it happen. And I think those people that like, well, I have to have this, this, and this before I can do this. I have to have this degree, or I have to learn all this theory before I can write like that. It's like, no, you got to write every day. That's how you get better. And that's the thing I'm putting into place now is like every day I just sit in this chair. And, if it comes out, it comes out. If it doesn't, hey, at least I attempted to do it. And I've been going through a creative funk.
It's always hard. Yeah. That's really hard, especially like that consistency can kind of feel like it saps you. I'm always trying to remind myself that it's not like a finite resource. You don't have 5 great soundtracks in you. You don't have, 10 wonderful pieces of orchestral music in you. You have an infinite amount. It's up to you. And it's just how long are you going to spend doing it? I heard I'm sure everyone's heard it before that. There's a great interview with Ira Glass where he talks about this kind of idea where he always tells beginners who want to be in radio or whatever or podcasting that you have to make this huge tremendous body of work that no one's ever going to see. That's the only thing that is the resource that you have to acquire more than equipment, more than anything else, is just having done this over and over and over and over and over again. And sometimes it's not going to be good and you're going to look back on it, you're going to be embarrassed by it, and that's okay. Just put it away and make something new tomorrow that you do like.
Or come back to that piece.
Come back to it and fix it. Yeah. I mean, some of the best stuff I've still ever written in my life was I wrote in high school. Right. I look back and I think, man, I wish I'd go back there and do that again. That was great. So, there's a lot of, there's you just have to keep, and the longer I've found, more distance in time I have between myself and something I've done, the more I like it. Something I finished yesterday, I'm like, I've been looking at it like a painting, like this close, like right next to my face, and I can see every tiny little flaw, but no one sees those. They just see the overall picture. And the more distant you can get from it, oftentimes you're like, that was good. That is something I'm proud of, but it takes time.
That happens, and
that's something. That's something to remember during writing blocks too, right? Is that you will probably like this 6 months from now, or a year from 2 years from now. So.
Or in a writing block to go back to those pieces that you abandoned, and then maybe you'll find a new spark with it. Maybe now you can conquer that thing that was blocking you. So I do that all the time, and that's some advice I try to give to people and my viewers. The thing about the high school thing, I feel that way too sometimes, because I think it's because it's before you really dive into the theory and like all the things, like the rules, and us as artists and creative people, we get hung up on that stuff. At least I do sometimes. It's like, well, it's not good enough because they won't do this, or I'm doing this, or parallel. You know what I mean? It's
parallel fifths.
So you get stuck in your own mind, And when you're in high school, you don't worry about that. It's like, I just want to create music, even if I
just want it to be good.
Even if I suck or whatever, I'm having fun doing it. And I think that's at the end of the day, where we got to remember that as composers, this is fun. That's why you got into do it. Don't make it not fun. But there is times where it's not fun. As we all know.
It's gonna not be fun. There's gonna be days where it's just gonna be like you start a project, close a project, start a project, close a project, start a project, close a project, and that's okay. And at the end of that day, and this is something I always try to get across to people, I don't know how well I always do it, but like if you spend 8 hours starting a piece, you don't feel like it's going anywhere, it's okay to abandon it, move on, abandon that, move on. And at the end of the day, you've written 22 measure pieces. You've still written 40 measures. It's still something to be proud of. You should still feel like you accomplished something because you started 40 pieces. It's like a slot machine, right? The more you pull the handle, the more likely you are to win. So if you started 40 pieces, that's awesome. That's great.
Same with that body of work. You've had 40 pieces. Exactly. I look at it this way. It's the same to YouTube. It's like if people want to grow an audience, it's like, well, if you have 100 videos, think about that. That's 100 times somebody can find you, on something that you're talking about. It's the same with music. And like you're talking about the library thing. And what I've been told is you want to have a wealth of material because eventually it'll start paying dividends on it, and you don't know where that project's going to go. So
yeah, absolutely. And, it's I don't mean to sound like elitist or anything, but like, most non-musical people, like, East West Symphonic Orchestra silver to them is indistinguishable.
They don't care
from a real orchestra. indistinguishable. They do not care.
They don't care.
So, yeah, maybe it's not the best library in the world. Okay, do what you can with it. I mean, some of the best stuff I ever heard on SoundCloud, some of the most interesting and successful realizations, MIDI realizations of orchestral music that I've ever heard is a guy who just used to do them on SoundCloud with literally Hollywood Symphonic Orchestra, like the free version or something. It's like the lowest thing that East West sold. I think it's like $30 or something. I can't remember. But he does these beautiful, and it's really good. It's because he understands orchestration first,
right,
and then he uses the sample second, and he gets there. So.
Yep.
You know, never before in the history of the universe has anyone been able to get that. You know, so many people have been able to get that close to the real orchestra sound if they want to. So don't worry about it. That's a distraction.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, libraries are awesome. Yes. Is it awesome to have a great studio? Yes. I wish my studio were much nicer than it is. But it's okay. You can always do something.
But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter because like most people, 95% of the people out there aren't going to tell the difference. They couldn't tell 10 years ago, you know, with VSL, like the regular. No. I mean, because I have a guy that I don't know if you know who he is, Mike Verda.
Yes.
I take his everybody knows Mike Verda. I mean, if you're a composer, like his master classes, and he did a mock-up with Contact Factory library sounds. Mm-hmm. Amazing. Because he knows orchestration, like you said, and that's what it is. And that's what I'm learning. I bought this, I think, The Essential Dictionary of Orchestration, this little book here. I'm trying to learn it. So I'm teaching myself, and I'm sure you got one somewhere.
Yeah, I was gonna look for my Adler. I don't remember where. I don't see it back there.
Yeah, but, so I mean, once you conquer that, then your compositions will get better. I've noticed myself, like I learn little things here and there, and that's the thing too with composing every day is that's how you learn, you know, by doing. I'm a big component of that. Learn by doing. And eventually you'll notice, you know, you're using block chords and you're stacking all these things, but eventually you'll get leaner and leaner and leaner. And it's like, I don't need all that, you know, I just have 4 voices, you know, cellos, bass, and violin. That's it. That's all I need. And that's, once you get over those hurdles, it does get easier, but then it gets harder. As you know, it's like a step ladder. And the thing I think at the end of the day is you'll never master this. Never.
I don't know. I feel like maybe John Williams lives in that beautiful place where he just sits down and beautiful, perfect music just comes out onto the paper for him. But he's probably the only one.
Yeah, I mean, we'd hope so. But I'm sure that there's days that he's banging his head on the wall too.
I'm sure there are.
I mean, that guy's still kicking, man. I mean, I actually have tickets to go see him here in April.
Oh, wonderful!
In Cleveland, my first time, and I'm really looking forward to it. So
that's wonderful. I had a friend who lived out in LA and went to go see him at the Hollywood Bowl. I don't remember how he got backstage. He got backstage. He just got backstage. Was like, "Hey, hi, I'm Mike." You know, I'm what's it? I can't remember his name. He just went back and just introduced himself to John Williams. I was like, man, there's no way I would ever be able to just go say hi to John Williams. I mean, if it was like a thing I'd paid for and I was being flown out or something, I'd still find it really hard. But he just went back and said hi. My name's Dave.
Yeah.
You know?
I can see that happening, especially for orchestral. It's not as, you know, secured as like a rock concert or whatever, because it's hard to get to, you know, meet band members. But you could do it. I remember in high school, it was like, I think the year 2000, I saw Slipknot. This was before they were even big. I mean, this was like in a small little venue, and my friends just snuck in. And they got to meet the band, hang out with them and all. I didn't because I left my ticket in the car and I went to go get it and come back. And the guards wouldn't let me in. So it's possible. But I mean, that was like, 2000. I was a senior in high school. So that dates me a little bit. So,
you know.
Yeah. But so like, what's some of your like inspiration? Well, you said John Williams. Obviously, everybody gets in this. It's either an Alan Silvestri or John Williams or James. Or James Horner. I mean, that's it. Like for most, mine's Alan Silvestri. I mean, I have a Back to the Future poster. I mean, when I was a kid, that was everything.
Around here somewhere.
So, I mean, for me, I think he's like where everybody can get into. Like even if you don't have the knowledge, like you can understand it. He, you know what I mean? Gets that. I guess the popular people, but he's still sophisticated in a sense. You know. At least Back to the Future, but I'm pretty sure he had orchestrators and stuff helping him with that.
I'm sure, you know, it's always, you know, it's film is and games or commercial music in general is very collaborative. Oftentimes the product is lots of people have touched it and done something to it and massaged it and made it better, which is really lovely because in the end you get, you're not alone.
Yes.
You're not Wagner going to your island of genius and then just having to emerge with some genius thing. It's everyone works with you, and which is really helpful, I think.
That's another myth that I like to dispel too, is like everybody just thinks you're locked away in a closet, with a piano and like, all these guys are writing this stuff. No, they have people helping them, to get this stuff too. I mean, John Williams, he actually does all his stuff, but he does hire orchestrators.
Yeah, he has an orchestrator. I mean, I've heard
but he can do it
his
himself.
Orchestrator.
Yeah.
Well, of course he can do it himself.
Yeah.
I mean, I've heard his orchestrator basically does his wind parts because wind parts are, a pain. But I mean, they have help. They have, the thing that you hear has gone through, how many millions of dollars of sound engineering, right? Like, and he doesn't do that.
Yeah.
he listens to it and probably gives him feedback, but he's not the one on the board, adjusting the gain of his microphones.
Exactly.
So,
but nowadays, us
nowadays you have to.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like now composers is like a jack of all trades, and that's another thing that composers never had to deal with this stuff. It's like, dude, I write the music. Give me a piano, I'll write it, and I put it on. You go, whatever, do with it, and they're gonna go play it. Now we're like, doing it all and saying, okay, now I have to play this line like this. So it's even more complexity, and I think we all get bogged down by that. It's like, well, if I could just tell this guy to go play that part, it'd be beautiful.
I think the industry gets bogged down by that.
Yeah.
I think that the whole idea that your product now, when you make a library, has to be put into the hands of essentially somebody with no training and still sound good.
Right.
And so everything gets bogged down by that, and that's one of the reasons why. I mean, I don't want to be this sort of, the music was so much better in the old days sort of person, but I do think that the focus now is so much more on sort of the texture, I guess, of the soundscape that you make, and less about the actual material, which I don't think is necessarily a bad thing. It's a thing. It's it's like when music in the 20th century went from being tonal and harmonic and melodic based to being tone color based when serialism happened. I mean, it's just a thing, and you can accept it or you can fight it. And sometimes when you fight it, be like, oh man, it's so great, this person has great melodies or whatever, or whatever. So that's a difficult thing for me. I have I grew up playing piano, with lessons, and then I went to school and took orchestration classes, and to this day I still perform here with a local orchestra every once in a while in a choir. So I sometimes I like to look down upon the commercial music people. Oh, it doesn't matter that synth sounds good. It's not voiced correctly. Well, that's something I have to fight personally. So
yeah, I'm the same way. I mean, when I was in college, I took one semester of all music classes, took music theory. I got like a D in it because like I'm like a guitar player thrown into college level.
That's hard.
That's hard.
Really hard.
But I did pretty well, and I started like getting it by the end. But there just wasn't enough time. I enjoyed it, but it's just like, I was 20 whatever years old and still trying to figure everything out, and I was like, well, music's just a hobby. And then one day it just dawned on me, it's like, okay, it's not a hobby, it's I mean, it still is a hobby for me, but like, if I don't do it now, I'll never do it. And so that's what I'm doing. I'm just trying to train myself, and I do transcriptions. I'm doing that a lot more now, trying to learn. Actually, I was transcribing one of the pieces that you're working on for. Cool. I was just like, I got to figure that out because I liked it. That I think I've learned the most doing that, and that's what I'm a big proponent of. It's a wonderful way. But the thing that stops me is I don't know how to write, and I don't know how to read music very well. I can do it. I can tell you the notes on treble clef and stuff like that, but I just can't. I can't do it, and I'm trying. But there's a thing is when you're younger, it's a lot easier to do.
It is, and it is. In the vein of sort of talking to people about how to get into it. I mean, that's the more actual real music education. It's not required by any means. I mean, Hans Zimmer got his start as a synthesizer programmer. He was not a musician. There's this endless pernicious rumor that he doesn't read music. I don't think that's true. He seems like he probably does by now, but there was definitely a point at some where he didn't. There was definitely a point in his life when we all didn't. So I always try to tell people, if you can get it under your belt, if you can get in that, it's a useful tool. It's just everything is a toolbox.
Yeah.
Everything is, how does my understanding of chord structures or scales help me get to that sound that I need? That's helpful.
Yep.
It's very helpful. It's not required though. So
No,
if you don't have it, don't think that I have to stall my career until I go get a degree in music. Well,
could do both. Yeah.
Yes.
But that's
both,
the struggle for me. I mean, that's like you have struggles with stuff like me. It's like, but I want to be like that. I want to be able to sit down and write it on paper. That's always been a fantasy of mine. Even when I was learning guitar, I've always in the back of my mind knew this is the route I wanted to go. I guess where it started for me was as guitar players like Yngwie Malmsteen. I don't know if you've heard of him, but he plays like neoclassical heavy. It's like classical guitar, like but electric, But I'm sure he's taking liberties with it. But he plays like Bach and Paganini and stuff like that. So that was my introduction to that stuff. It was Metallica when they did the orchestra thing. I was like, this is freaking awesome! Like a rock band playing with an orchestra. Yeah, that was it for me, and that's when I kind of got into this stuff, and Steve Vai, I listened to Steve Vai, and he went to Berkeley. So, I mean, he's actually, a full-blown, he can write on paper, and he does orchestra stuff. But I've always wanted to do that, and that's what I've always wanted to do, but it's just like, how do you do it? And so you just got to teach yourself, read books, or get it. And I'm a strong proponent of getting a mentor. Like, that's what I'm trying to find, and people to look up to. That's how you're going to learn the fastest. So, yeah. But, yeah, I mean, it's cool, and I forgot what I was going to say. No problem. Yeah.
So, I mean, there's this like idea that you can't work until someone has hired you to do the work. Yeah. And I know I'm kind of repeating myself and do the work anyway, but it's a hard thing to get across that the work that you're doing is actually the thing that gets you hired. Yeah. Right. Like it's the thing you're going to show somebody that's going to make them say, "Oh, I should give this person money," because no one cares about your degrees. No, they just don't. They don't care. They don't care about. They care about what you are going to actually make, the thing that you are going to produce for them, and that's such a weird twist to try to explain to people that like you don't get hired to make something, you make something to get hired to make something, and then it's like a cycle that kind of builds on itself. Right. So I mean, sort of when I think about all the ideas about how I got into it and what you need to get started, and the answer is nothing. So
yeah, that's true. And I mean, when you make a portfolio or whatever, that's that word gets tossed on a lot. Is show examples of what you want to get hired for. So don't do something that you don't like doing just to put it on your reel, because that's what you're going to get hired for, not the stuff that you love. So
yes.
What do you recommend for like creating? I was looking at yours like a portfolio. Just make your best things. That you would like when you're just getting started, like something you're proud of, or
I mean, I like the big break that I had was doing Starbound's music, and they just found my website and saw some stuff on it, and I just put up a bunch of pieces that I really liked on the front page on like a SoundCloud player or something, and they liked them, and so they got a hold of me and said, "Hey, do you want to can you do some like a demo or two for us?" And I said, "Sure, absolutely." It's such a hard thing. The tension between don't get taken advantage of and you have to make something, but it's those are not mutually exclusive things to do a demo or two, to do a day's worth of work to try to get something. I really encourage people, if somebody comes to you and says, "Hey, I want to just do it, can you do something in this style?" Yeah, I would really encourage you to do it, even if that doesn't necessarily come with a fee. Maybe don't do the whole game. Yeah, right. But do the demo. Yeah, show them what you can do.
Yeah. So. And if not, take that track and put it in your portfolio and shop it around for another one. Yeah.
Exactly. And this is why royalty free is great, right? Because it's just a place to dump stuff. Somebody didn't want this. Okay, finish it off. Go dump it on the royalty free. Someone will go pay you a license for it, and yeah, sure. Well, it'll give you $20 every 6 months, but that's more than $0 every 6 months.
Cool. So let's talk a little bit about royalty free music, I guess, in case people don't understand. So like, is that something that when you go to do it, or you submit tracks, do you submit in bulk, or do you submit a track per 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 track, or
I've
always
depends.
heard.
You know, some like the giant library right now that everyone loves because they you know, if it's good enough they will 100% accept it, is Audio Jungle. That's like a big thing in the royalty free space right now, and there is so much music on there. There's so many people, and just being seen is really, really hard. So they always recommend be really regular about it. So they, you know, I don't do this anymore, but there was a time where I was like, I'm going to put something on Audio Jungle every day, just every day. You can't do that anymore. They don't let you. They only let you have so many pieces at a time, but in the review queue. But that regular thing, and you know, they show on their front page these are the 25 most recent tracks uploaded. So you're getting front page on one of the biggest royalty free sites in the world every time you get a track. Now it's for like 5 minutes, but it's more than what you had before. So for that one, I do that. There are other libraries where, you know, it kind of doesn't seem to matter if you do it regularly. It's pretty much the same. So for those, I'll kind of like, you know, let it build up and then kind of do a bunch at a time. So, you know, and then there are some libraries I submit to sort of a private one that, you know, licenses out to TV shows and stuff every once in a while. And they want like, you know, X number of minutes at a time, you know, all at once. So they want you to submit 10 tracks at once, or, you know, an hour of music at once. So that just kind of depends. I would really encourage people who are trying to get into royalty free to use one of the sites like Audio Jungle or Pond 5 or something like that, because you won't make a ton. You'll make, you know, if you're lucky, like $100 or $200 a month, which is, you know, more than zero, but it's not a living. It's nice to get paid for it. It's nice for it to be a motivator. You know, this is going somewhere. It's not just me kind of in the dark making this thing that no one will ever see. You know, someone's going to see it because you're going to submit it, and a reviewer is going to review it. You know, that's also a nice incentive to really work on your craft, because there is a chance they're just going to be like no, and everyone they say no to at some point. I mean, I've had several tracks rejected there. So
that's what I've heard stories about that. Yeah. So and it's one of those things like you build up over time, then try a new library, and you know, it's kind of one of those things that will pay off in the long run. It's kind of like you got to look out 5 years from now. You know, this is stuff that's income that's going to come back to you. It's not a get rich quick.
Especially now that they are allowing you to have like ASCAP registered tracks there. That's really good, right? Because if somebody does pick that up and put it on a commercial, you're not going to see that money for 6 months, but hey, that's awesome. That's great. You know, that's no longer a barrier. That used to be a big thing with those online libraries, is they wouldn't let you do ASCAP or BMI registered tracks. Now they do, because basically because I don't know why, but I think it's because Germany got mad at them. But I think what is it, CSAC over in Europe? I think they they got on their case and basically told them you can't sell here unless you allow this. So they did. So
cool,
which is great. It's wonderful. It's a big victory for creatives. So.
Well, and plus it, you know, keeps track of your tracks, and you know, you get compensated for your things, because you know it's with the internet and YouTube, people steal your tracks, put it up, and you might not get paid. I just saw that the other day. So it's one of those things that we have to fight as well. And also another thing that I've been told is learn the music business. You know, a lot of composers don't. And then, you know, when it comes to
that's a weakness for me. I'm really bad at that. I'm really terrible. I'm a terrible negotiator. I don't have my rates high enough, all this other stuff. But you know, a way to get around that is maybe to find an agent or somebody to negotiate on behalf of you. There's a lot of people that'd be perfectly happy to represent you for 12% of your whatever, or 30% of your whatever. So that's always too.
But I mean, I think we all. I mean, I'm not an expert myself. I mean, I have one music book. The what is it, Donald Pass? I think, you know, the book that everybody tells you to get for music, what you need to know about the music business. I've cracked it open a few times, but you know, it's one of those things. It's like I always feel like I gotta create, you know, and it's like if I spend my time over here reading all this stuff, it's taken from the time for me to learn actually creating, because I'm a learn by doing, and that's how I've gotten to where I've gotten in transcriptions. I'm trying to apply that more too, just like composing. I'm trying to do at least, even if it's a bar, you know, one day, you know, and you'll see improvements. And I think it's helped me with melody writing. That's the big one, is melodies. I think usually I'm pretty good at it, but for me it's since I come from a rock background, I'm used to the 4/4, you know, kind of thing. And when you get into orchestral music, it's like, you know, you're placing the beat everywhere else, and other instruments are doing this. And for me, that's where I get kind of like, okay.
Well, you know, a lot of the big help that I always tell people to do that is to just listen. You know, listen to a lot of it. I always encourage people to go to imslp.org and look at the score, because they have just thousands and thousands of scores. That's always a wonderful place. Read along. It's really daunting to read an orchestral score if you've never done it before, but eventually you start to notice that they always follow the same patterns. It's always winds, brass, percussion, strings. They're always in that nice order. Yeah, just ignore the viola clef. I know it's really weird. Just ignore it. Just just do what you can. Just see if you can follow along, and you can be better. And to that end, I find personally that I have to be doing some sort of either instruction or performance to kind of keep on that. So like I sing in choirs here. I really enjoy singing. It's not I don't want to make my living at it, but it's nice to perform and to have to sit there and follow along and sight sing and sight read and do all that stuff.
Exactly.
Because I wouldn't do that if I just sat at this desk every day and programmed MIDI. I would get really bad at it. In fact, my piano, I need to go take some piano lessons because my piano's getting pretty rusty. So I really encourage people to do that. And, teaching too, if you have the skills to be able to do get hired at like a private studio and just teach, 1 day a week or whatever, that's really helpful. You'll find that, it's that old Japanese saying, if you want to learn, teach.
Yep. That's what I'm doing.
Japanese?
I think so. Learn. Yeah. I followed, like I said, learn by doing. And that's why I do this YouTube channel. Everything that I've learned along the way, I like to share, because I remember when I was getting started, there was like nobody doing this stuff. Now, now they focus on sample library. It's all sample libraries. And I'm trying not to do that. I do it once in a while, but I'm trying to focus more on like making the composing a little more easier, because like we were talking about before, is we have all this stuff that we have to deal about instead of focusing on writing the music. So if we can make that simpler, it doesn't matter if you use Cubase. I know you use Logic. I used to use Logic. I used to, and I switched to Cubase like 2 years ago because of right now with Cubase, you can disable tracks. So you can build a freaking template that's 2,000 tracks, just disable them all, and it won't blow up your computer. So that's how I'm doing it now. So that's why I switched. But I just noticed that Logic got articulations, where like kind of like expression maps with Cubase. I think they just added it in that 10.4. And I've heard it's pretty cool.
I haven't used it. I could probably use any DAW because I tend to kind of do all that through the library itself.
Yeah, so, I've seen how you work. So
yeah, I kind of just I've got all the Legatos
Pro
and all of the and I use Vienna because it's just Vienna. I don't mean to be an ad for Vienna Ensemble Pro here, but I would really encourage you, if you're having a hard time, out there, if you're having a hard time, with your system resources, Vienna Ensemble, even locally, like running it as a local server, I found just really made my performance a lot better. It was quite a revelation. Part of that's because Logic is just not very great with VI. It's just directly in the DAW, but.
Yeah, I have it. I have a copy. I have it on my old Mac Pro, my 2010, still running. I'm trying a hybrid approach this year. So I've actually condensed down. I used to have all these. I have Cinesample, I have Cinesamples East West and Spitfire. So now I'm just using Spitfire. I got the whole orchestral package.
Very nice.
And, it makes it easier with reverbs and stuff because it's all in one room. I do like Cinesamples though. I love the brass, Cinebrass. I love it.
I've got a friend who's a commercial composer who loves Cinesamples, loves their strings. Everything he does with their strings, everything he makes is just gorgeous, much better sounding than anything I make. So, great libraries, right? Wonderful libraries.
They're all great libraries. At the end of the day, I think, like I say, there's the top three. It's East West, Spitfire, and Cinesamples. For me, because I think they make the best libraries. Cinesamples a little dated. But
in there, but
they're getting better though. But I think there's some coming up like ADO, and there's who else?
ADO's good. Yeah. ADO's interesting.
I'm not a fan, but
they have a different take on things. I think sometimes is really kind of cool.
It's
Epic or
it's the Epic music stuff.
It's like this really super contemporary approach to absolutely everything, which is cool.
Do you have any orchestral tools?
Yes.
I have Berlin woodwinds. I think those are still my favorite woodwinds. They sound the most realistic. They're just a system hog, man.
I gotta do this, right?
Nah.
No, I don't. Right, I have perfectly good ones. I need to remind myself of that.
I hear your stuff, and I think it's great, man. You use pretty much predominantly East West, right? For the most part.
a mix nowadays. That's what I started on, was East West. My first real big purchase of a sample library was Symphonic Orchestra Platinum. Actually it was that and Hollywood Strings, because they were running some 2-for-1 sale, and then I didn't use Hollywood Strings for forever because my poor iMac would just explode and catch on fire and jump out the window or whatever.
Exactly.
This was back in 2010, so it was not a super new Mac. It was when Hollywood Strings was still
I remember,
super hard to run.
Before SSDs,
right before, when you were trying to run it off a 7200 RPM drive, it was a balancing act. And I go back and I listen to that music and I'm like, man, that's really, really good. Why did I think this was terrible? Why did I think I was bad at this? I was okay. It was fine. My computer was fine. And I tell people that, I know I keep hammering this, but like 2010, 2011, I was running on, a computer anybody could buy, and I was running the highest end string samples that were available. And it was a pain in the ass. It was really, really hard. But it worked, so nowadays I'm sure a MacBook, the little tiny MacBooks, with the Celerons or whatever, they could probably run great samples. So
it's more efficient now. I think they're more efficient with SSD technology. That changed the game for everybody.
Yeah, SSDs really made everything a lot better. And, as they get faster and faster with those, it'll just be better. So,
but like the sound, it hasn't changed. It really, it's just now they bake the room in to make it sound cooler right out the box. Because before, VSL, I didn't have it, but I know from talking with composers, you had to build the rooms. You had to build all the tails and all the room stuff. So it's gotten easier, but it's gotten harder because now you have to do all the production stuff. So,
it's gotten easier for you to make it, but now you're competing with everybody who can make it too.
Who can do it too. Yeah, everybody's got the same tools.
Pretty soon it's going to be me competing against a grade schooler. I know it. I just know it.
But, at the end of the day, like you said, if you don't have the education, that will show after a while. You'll only get so far.
Yeah, the education is important.
You only get so far until you'll get limited, and all your stuff will just sound the same, or you just can't take it to the next level. But like you said, commercial stuff like libraries, royalty-free music, you don't really need to be John Williams. I mean, because most of the tracks they're using is just beds for like commercials or spots. It's atmospheric and sound design kind of thing. Like that's my weak thing, is sound design. I don't know how to do all that stuff, and because I'm like you. I mean, I come from the old Alan Silvestri, John Williams, like I have to have a melody. I'm sorry, gotta have something there talking to me. And I tried writing a track that was just kind of like, kind of a thing. I was like, but where's the melody? It's like I gotta have a melody. So I'm right there with you.
There's melody problems. There's like this idea that like a track can be 2 minutes long and the only harmonic idea is one single chord, like literally the entire time, and it's just interesting. So
vertical development
over that, just interesting. And it sounds great. I actually like to listen to it, but when I write it, I think, man, I have to change the chord, right?
I gotta do something.
And then you do it and it just ruins everything.
Yeah.
It's really interesting. So that's a thing,
It is. Well, that's what we're in right now,
Right.
Like that comes from Hans, because like that's his background. Like me, like I'm a rock guy, and like that's what we do. When you play a rock song, you're playing 3 chords through the whole song, and then you might have the bridge and turn it up a little bit, but that's it. And so that's where it comes from, and I get it, because that's for me when I first started. I was like, I'm gonna do this epic music stuff because it's drums, and after a while I just got bored. It's like, because you just keep throwing everything into it, and it's like, okay, my track doesn't sound any cooler. It just sounds cool, but it's not. There's nothing there. There's no substance. So, when I found Mike Verda's classes, he liked it. Every time I'm writing, like his voice is echoing in my head. Don't do that.
He's done such wonderful work to like give back, I think, and it's really lovely to see that. And I'm really glad he exists, because and there's a million people like him, and now there's these master classes. Go learn to score with whoever.
I have the Hans Zimmer one. It was okay. It was
good?
okay.
I haven't tried
it's okay. I would say for you, it's more like just kind of like his approach, and it's not really technical. Like, okay, here's how I do this. It's kind of just like top level view, not like Mike Verda's. Or
of course it's not like technically how I do this, because that would be, I have $10 million to play with, so I have all this stuff, which but you're the only one. I mean, even other Hollywood composers probably look at your stuff and drool, right? Like
I like Hans. I mean, just to throw,
no, he's wonderful.
I love him.
I think people, I see a lot of people, especially, really, like I said, really sort of academic, where people really kind of look down on him, and I don't know why. It's like,
well, it's because
he's doing something new. That's fine.
And well, it's because, like you said, I went to school, for this, and I have this degree and all this stuff, and yet I'm sitting here in my, I might be an instructor or professor or whatever. Why am I not making music? I know everything. This guy doesn't know anything, but yeah, he's, making it. So, and I think that's another thing a lot of composers got to get away from, that, well, I'm better than you because I know all this stuff. Well, okay, good, but you're not doing anything.
But it doesn't matter if you don't do something with it. It doesn't matter if it's not effective.
Got to do it. Show up every day. It
just doesn't matter.
It doesn't.
I was fortunate when I went to college. One of my composition professors was actually a commercial composer. He did his name was Neil Arco. He did the Wild America theme, bum 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 bum, and he had scored 90210 back in the 90s and all this other stuff, and he really liked Midi and playing with Midi, and he was I mean, even in being a professor at a college, he taught students. Even then there was still a lot of sort of like, oh, he just plays with Midi, or he just does all this stuff, and a lot of those people who would look down on him and his sort of his students who really liked him, they don't do music for a living. They install air conditioning for a living, and there's nothing wrong with installing air conditioning for a living, but
you got to get over it.
Yeah, if you want to do this, you're just going to have to get over it. And that's a hard thing to learn.
It is,
especially when you have people like John Williams, who is probably historically important. Like, people will probably, when they look at this period of music history, he will be mentioned.
He already is. I mean, he already
is. He's done. Yeah, exactly. And he's done important concert works outside of his film scores and things like that. And so people looking at, but there can only be so many of those. There's just not enough room for there to be a million people like that.
Yeah, I did a recent video, and that's one thing I said. I said 99.9% of us are not going to be John Williams or Hans Zimmer. We're going to be over here. There can only be a select few people that do that. So, and that goes back to what we talked about at the beginning. Is like, you don't have to be that to make a living doing this.
Absolutely not. And like I said, there are things you can do to make it easier. Teaching, doing things outside. I mean, if you sell insurance for a living and then come home and make music at night for clients, that is awesome. That is totally fine. There is nothing wrong with that. You should not feel that, oh man, if I was just better, I would do it all the time. Like I said, the only reason I can do this, even me, the only reason I can do this all the time, every day, is because I have a wife who, makes some money to keep us going in between things. So, that's okay. That's all right. And if you have part-time job teaching, that's awesome, because that makes you a better composer too. So, I mean, to the extent that it's possible to do something that helps and informs your composition and helps and informs the way you write, awesome. Do that. I didn't want to teach at all. I hated it. When I was in college, we had to take music pedagogy classes as sort of part of our supplemental orchestration, and I hated it. I was like, I'm not going to be teaching band in high schools. I'm not going to be teaching choirs. I'm not going to be doing this. I'm not going to be doing this. Like, why do I have to do this? But that was some of the most important stuff I learned was that, because it gave me a skill set. I'm so glad they made us all do that. At the time, I would have complained bitterly about it. Bitterly, this is so stupid. It wasn't. It was not stupid.
It all comes back. That's one thing I'm 36 now. So like in my 20s, I was like floundering for a long time, and, like the music thing, and it's a hobby. And then, one day it just kind of dawned on me. It's like, man, you just got to do it. You just got to do it. And it doesn't matter how old you are. Because think about John Williams. He didn't get famous until he was like 44.
I was just about to bring that up. Is that like, John Williams did not really get into stuff until he was really old, and really his real big successes were even later. You look at pictures. You look at him scoring Indiana Jones and E.T. and stuff, and like, he is not a young person in those. He had to work for it. Overnight success isn't.
Nope. And I heard actually that for classical composers, they peak at 60, 70 years old. That's when they peak.
That makes sense.
As a composition. It's crazy. So I mean, if you're young, and
this isn't math. This isn't all those crazy geniuses in math.
No, it takes years and dedication and study. I'm sure John Williams is still learning at 8. What was it?
How lucky are we as musicians to be like that, right? Like, we don't have to. I look at, you see, like, my wife is in the medical field. field. She always talks about how like when people retire, you know, their health outcomes really go down. It's like, I don't have to ever retire. Ever. I can be John Willis. I can be 90 years old and still be doing my job. And that is so great, right?
Awesome.
That is awesome. That is fantastic. We are so lucky. The downside, if there is one, is that it's sometimes you're 25 and you're like, man, I haven't done anything important.
Right.
Don't worry about it. Just work. Just go perform and go be around musicians. Be around.
And also one thing I'm going to add there is have a life outside of music too, because you can bring that, because a lot of guys, as you know, will just sit at this computer for 12 hours a day, every day. It's like, yeah, that's great. You're going to learn a lot, but then your music's going to suffer because you don't have any life experience or emotion to come and bring into it. Like I have 2 kids, and I know you have, I think you have a kid as well.
I have one, little one.
So it's like, that's where we get ours, you know, and like, trying to balance that too is a big struggle for me. I'm sure it is for you as well.
Oh yeah.
Trying to find the time.
It's everywhere back here. I mean, it's like,
So, I mean, that's the thing. If you're young, just getting started, don't have any family or attachments or kids, do it now. Because I'm telling you, once you get responsibilities, house and payments and kids, just finding 5 to 10, 30 minutes a day to sit and compose is difficult. But if you love it, you'll make the time.
Yeah, I mean, it'll if you like it enough that you do it anyway. Then it's not right, because I feel like a lot of people, I mean, especially myself, when I'm like, compose every day, do this more and more and more, it starts to sound like you're a wastrel if you're playing a video game or watching a movie. You're not, especially if that's what you want to like write music for. Like that's education. It's education when you are doing that. I mean, and you don't have to be focused on it. If you're just having fun watching a Star Wars movie and you're not listening to music at all, that is okay. That is okay.
You have to get away.
Later, maybe come back and think about it. You know, why did I like that so much? The one of the most revelatory experiences in my life as a commercial composer was I walked out of the first How to Train Your Dragon movie, and I was like,
great score.
That score was so good, but I wasn't thinking about it the whole time. I mean, occasionally I was like, wow, this music's really good, and then I would go back to watching the movie. and it was that experience of going back to it that was good. So like if I would be sitting in a theater like looking at my watch, like I'm not in front of the computer, I'm not in front of the piano, I would have missed it.
Right.
So you know, don't guilt is bad too. Don't guilt yourself. Don't, you know,
beat yourself up.
Ethic is great, but just you know, it's okay. It's okay to relax.
Take
it's good
time.
to relax. It's important to relax.
I struggle with that, and I did a lot, and now I just go, you know what? Patience. You know, patience is the key. Just show up every day, compose every day, build the library. You'll get better, and you know it will all work out in the long run. You know,
absolutely.
Even if you're not John, and that's another thing. I think a lot of us put pressures like I have to be famous. No, you don't. You know, you don't have to. Like you said, you can work a day job and do this on this. If that does it for you, then that's beautiful. But if you can do it full time, that's even cooler.
Absolutely.
That's the dream.
Absolutely. and like, yeah. And like the 10,000 foot view, right? Like if somebody sits in a hermit shack with a piano and writes the most beautiful music in the entire world. Is it sad that no one hears that? Absolutely. It would be super sad. And it would be better if someone had heard that. But was that time well spent? Yes, it was. Like it's fine. You can just make something beautiful. That is okay. That is okay to just make good stuff. No one ever hears it. That's fine. But make music you want to hear, right?
Right, exactly. But also, I think another thing that we have to do, and we a lot of people start now, we get afraid to share our music.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
You have to share it because that's how you're going to learn and grow. You know, to hear that feedback. Because if you never hear that feedback, you're just thinking, I'm doing the same. You know, I'm doing well because I love it. But you know, if you're not speaking to anybody, you're never going to know. And so I think sharing it, maybe not your first or second track, but you know, maybe when you're doing it for 6 months to a year, just test the waters, put it out there and ask for critical feedback. And I started doing track reviews on my channel. I just did one last Friday. It was great because I learned too, you know, and it's so I'm trying to get
back to that virtuous cycle of teaching and critiquing and learning and being better. So I do that, and I try to give them advice, you know, because I think for me, like I'm really good at hearing somebody's piece and hearing what I think it would make it better. But when I'm sitting down doing my own piece, I'm like, why can't I do that with my pieces? It's just like my mind just goes blank. So you know, that's hard.
It is.
And you know, those online forum discussions, I both want to like yell at people that are too critical, and I want to also yell at people who can't take criticism. You know, I I don't know to what extent it is true that like in modern society, kids never can, take criticism or be challenged or whatever. I don't care about whether that's true, but I will tell you, if you want to be a professional musician in your life, there's going to be times where it's brutal. I mean, I've been in orchestral rehearsals that are just the conductor, just like basically telling people, if you mess this up again, you're gone, you're out, you're going to be fired. And that is uncomfortable, and that is hard, and that is challenging. But you know what? That person never made that mistake again. Yeah, right. Like it's.
But you learn.
It's okay, and that's good. And you should like take that as like something. This is a good experience. Whenever I go into a rehearsal and somebody is getting oversensitive about some conductor just critiquing them, I'm just like, this person is not here to make you feel good. This person is here to make you better. Right. So yeah, if somebody goes online and tears your piece apart and doesn't give you any constructive feedback, ignore them. Just ignore them. But if it is constructive, if you can be self-critical and accept the fact that, hey, maybe this person is right, that is awesome. Now you can go be better. The worst thing that you can ever have when you go post a piece online is, wow, it was so great and wonderful, I really liked it.
And you're never going to learn, you're never going to grow. And but don't take it personally. Don't take the criticism. I think a lot of people in as creatives, I know me when I was younger, I used to take it personally, but it's not
hard.
It is hard
because
it is personal. It's very personal.
No matter how good you are, people are going to be saying mean things.
People are still knocking John Williams.
Right. Well, and I mean, look, John Williams is a genius, and I think he's super important, and I love him with all my heart. And the day he dies, I'm gonna like wear black for like 8 years, right? It's gonna be super sad. But I mean, if you are somebody who is striving to do something super new, and you're like one of these crazy people who lives up in an ivory tower and writes really super bizarre music, I mean, I can understand why you're critical. And I think that John Williams probably reads that and says, yeah, no, it's it's a little bit of a ripoff of Wagner. It's a ripoff of Mahler or whatever.
It's already been done.
He probably accepts it and probably grows and tries to learn and moves forward. That's okay. It's okay. It's no one is perfect. John Williams is not perfect. Wagner is not perfect. James Horner is not perfect. Poor James Horner. Rip.
Yeah. That was a tough one. That was really sad,
especially since he was so young, comparatively. So just like criticism is good if it's useful. If it's not useful, if it's just somebody slamming you because you're not writing in the style, I mean, that they want, right? Maybe they want, super atonal modern music, and you're writing something tonal and they're like, this is so derivative and blah, blah, blah. Yes, you can set that aside. That's fine. And learning how to sort through that is a skill. And just like composition, the only way you get better at it is by getting it and doing it and sorting through it. And you're going to be wrong sometimes. Sometimes you're going to post something and someone's going to yell at it and say it's terrible, and you're going to be like, oh no, that person's wrong. But then you might come back later and look at it and be like, oh, that person had some really good points. So, just it's hard. It's really hard. But the best thing for me that ever happened to me as a composer was back in the day in like 2001, 2, 3, somewhere in there. I used to Sibelius, the engraving software I used to have user forums, and it was like, I think it was to this day probably one of the most important things in my creative life to have people listening to my music, saying it's good, saying it's bad. To listen to other people's music, to say it's good, to say it's bad, to be right, to be wrong, and all those things, and to learn to have that dialogue. That was really, really important.
That's cool.
I'm sad that does not exist anymore.
I've heard other people talk about that.
Curse you, Avid, for destroying Sibelius.music.com. But
I've heard that multiple times from other composers. That's where they got their start. Just similar to what you did, and fortunately I didn't. So. It sounds like it's cool.
These things still exist. VI Control Forum has a great thing. I don't go in it a whole lot. I just haven't had time or the energy.
They have a Discord channel. If you have Discord, they have a chat. I'm on that all the time, and
awesome. I actually have to join that.
You should check it out. Go into the VI Control Forum, and you'll see chat, and then you can hook up Discord, and we're all in there, and it's actually really nice because we talk, and you can get feedback and stuff like that. So
that's wonderful. I mean, I would encourage everyone to go do that. If you are a new person, you're trying to get better at this, go do that. Go post stuff in there, let people rip it to shreds. It's fine. Don't worry about it.
But as long as hopefully they give you feedback of how to improve it, because that's where you're going to grow. If they just say it sucks and whatever, you're not going to learn. Like you said, just ignore that, and hopefully they're willing to help you and tell you how to make it better. Like that, somebody did that with one of my pieces, and I listened to the piece I did, and then I listened to after they gave me constructive feedback. I was like, oh yeah, I get it, and then it's up there.
Right.
So
right. That's a really cool resource. I'm glad that you mentioned that.
Yeah.
I'll have to go join it.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, there's the Perspective Forum on Facebook for film
Oh,
and
yeah.
media. I don't know. I think you have to be like invited to it, but I don't know how that works. But it seems like there's like, I mean, I've seen Austin Winnery post in there, and then
yeah, I think I'm in that one.
Yeah,
I just
but
like,
I've also seen just like random regular persons.
Oh
so
yeah, but I
can't
try to stay
believe-
away from that stuff, man, because like you can get it's a wormhole, you know, you get in it.
It is.
So I just stay on the VI Control Discord.
Yeah.
I have it up, and if I need a question answered, I go in there. Once I got into that, I stopped going to the website. I go there once in a while if I have a problem. But yeah, so I mean, let's like we'll wrap this up here because I know it's getting late.
No
but
problem.
so like what gear do you use? Like MIDI controller, stuff like that?
My current MIDI controller is I just used to
I see
use
your old
this
one, yeah, right there.
audio one, you know, simple,
Yeah.
low end.
I have the 49
like 88, yeah, I like 88 keys because I am a piano player, so I miss when it's not the size of a piano keyboard. I actually wish that people made one that had the extra like low C that the Bosendorfer's pianos have, but no one does. Or if they do, it's like, you know, $80 bazillion. This one died. One of the keys stopped working, so I bought a Nectar Impact. It was just the cheapest one I could find that had some sliders so that I could.
I have the exact same one.
Modulation.
Do you have the newer one or the old model? I have the older model.
LX88. I don't know. It's got
It's one I got.
Summer, I think. I don't know. Anyway, it's fine. It's, you know, this is not an expensive MIDI controller by comparison. But it works. You know, it's all I need is to do this is to just be able to program stuff in. So that's what I use from a MIDI controller. Right now, I just run like a dual iMac setup for my actual workstation. You know, someday we'll be on a Mac Pro. We'll find out. We need them to actually make one, but
it's coming this. Well, they said this year, next year.
Yeah, hopefully it's not like $80,000, whatever.
It will be.
It will be, of course.
You're a Mac guy, right? Yeah, you're a Mac guy. Yeah, me too.
I'm used to it. So yeah, I just run the iMacs because I mean it's the highest end consumer stuff you can buy for the most part. I have a sample server that's just like a Windows PC. It's just I used a build from Puget Systems. They're a nice, just little boutique PC manufacturer. They're a little bit more expensive. It's probably a lot cheaper to just build them yourself. But I don't like to mess with that. So that's what I use for like a sample server for Vienna. So I just run Vienna, and I don't have any special software on there. It's just regular old Windows 10. Fist at Microsoft, and Vienna. That's all that's on there.
Cool.
My sound card is just a regular old Complete Audio 6. Nothing special, nothing amazing. My desk I bought at IKEA.
Yeah, same here.
I'm looking at maybe that Output makes a desk now. The sample people, they actually make a desk now. It actually looks really nice. It looks like it's like a really economical composer desk, because if you ever go on and look in composer desks, you know, you're lucky to get out of the door for under $5,000. Theirs is like $800, which is a lot of money. It's a lot of money, but for a desk that has a keyboard tray and rack mounts and all that stuff, I made
my own keyboard tray. I have an IKEA desk. What I did is I got those for, you know, those keyboard sliders that you can get for actual computer keyboard.
Like typing.
I took those off, and then I screwed them into the sides of the Nectar, and then just screwed it into my desk.
Nice.
To pull out it works, man. It works. There's a video.
That's another thing, you know, like
it works.
Back to the thing, you don't need the super expensive equipment. Just get a keyboard slider. So, so I mean that's currently pretty much my setup. I use I can't remember JBL. Whatever their 88 series, I think it is, monitors. Again, I do not have the, you know, $10,000. I don't think there's a difference. I really don't. No one cares. If you're doing mixing and mastering, I could see why. But you're a composer. If you're a composer, it doesn't matter.
Do you mix your own stuff, or do you send yours off?
I do. I will occasionally, if I'm doing like a contract work through like a client, through my agent will sometimes hook me up with a mixing mastering guy. We did that on Interstellar Rift. That was not mixed or mastered by me. I just composed it, sent off the stems, and got lovely tracks back. That's the only time I've ever done that, though. So, and that was only because that was they were paying for, they had a fairly high fee for me, which was good. So I had some extra money in the budget to kind of go that extra mile, but that's not something you have to do. Right. I'm a member of that online service that claims to mix and master for you. Can't remember what it's called. I don't remember. ASCAP gave me some promotion for it.
I remember it. I can't think of the name either.
Haven't used it once.
Okay.
Throw isotope ozone on your stereo output and just pick a preset that sounds good. That is my belief. That
we're very similar in that way.
Yeah, just it's not going to matter. Yeah.
Like I said, I put my focus in the music, man. Like I don't worry about all that stuff because if the music's good, it's written well, it will sound good. Usually,
I think there are some few plugins that I would recommend for composers. Like I said, isotope ozone, if you can afford it, that's great. They have a cheaper something. I think it's like Alloy or something.
Yeah, Alloy.
Something like that. Just cheap. Use a preset. Just click through the presets. Find one that's good for you. It's not the optimal mixing mastering. If there are mixing and mastering people watching this later who are like grabbing their monitors, I understand you do a better job. I agree that in a professional scenario, I would much rather hire you and give you money. But if you're, a poor composer, that's a great way to just kind of get, 80% of the way, 90% of the way there without having to go take a class in psychoacoustics.
Right.
So I recommend isotope products. I use an Oxford inflator because it's, again, one of those plugins you just move a slider and things sound better. So why not? And then that's it. And then East-West reverbs is what I use for all my reverbs.
Spaces. Yeah. I heard they're coming out with a new one too, I think.
Yeah, I saw that. I'm wondering how expensive that's going to be.
I love it. I mean, it works. And like we said, at the end of the day, you're the people, you got to keep in mind who you're writing the music for and who's going to listen to it. Your audience, they ain't going to know what freaking reverb you're using. They don't care. So
if you just got paid $1 million to write a Hollywood movie, by all means, I do not listen to what I have to say. Go hire somebody.
Exactly.
If you do not have the money to hire somebody, just there's a lot of off-the-shelf products you can just plug in a preset and it will sound great. It will sound just fine, and it will sound better than anything that was made for millions of dollars in 1995. It will sound much better. So keep that in mind, that you don't and focus on the ideas.
Yep. Let's think about this. Go back and listen to the first Star Wars soundtrack.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It sounds horrible, but you still love it.
Yeah, and you still love it, and that was really good at the time, right? That took enormous amounts of effort at the time. How lucky are you that you can press a button in a computer and it sounds better than that?
Yep.
That's amazing. So those are my sort of like non-music, and then for samples, my current libraries are for orchestra. I have Hollywood Orchestra Diamond. I recommend, if it is possible for people to buy the Diamond versions. It is worth it. I do think so. The close mics give you a lot of texture that you don't always get in the mics that are way far back from the orchestra. Mm-hmm. I use some 8DO strings. Their Adagio library I picked up on a sale like a couple of years ago or a year or so ago, and it's fine. It's nice to mix libraries whenever possible, because then you get a sort of unique sound, because maybe somebody else hasn't mixed those two particular libraries in that particular way. So that's a nice way to kind of differentiate yourself. Again, it's not required. If you can't afford it, don't beat yourself up. Heaviosity, I like their gravity stuff. Heaviosity is like it's a lot like Apple. It's like super expensive, but it's very nice. So you get really good stuff, and it's really nice out of the box. You don't have to mess with it. It's just really great presets, a really great synth. I recommend those. Output, I own most of the things Output makes. So the Signal Pulse library is really good. Their reverse library is there's something else I own by them that's really good. But that's pretty much it. I mean, there's a one-off library here or there that I use. Dark Zebra from UHE.
Okay. Yeah. Synth
is really nice. That's the one, it's Hans Zimmer uses this one.
Right.
Hey, you can pick that up and you can get the Hans Zimmer version, and there are patches in there that he programmed. That's awesome. That's so great. Like, if that's your thing, if that's the style you want to go for, for $600 you can have a synth that Hans Zimmer uses.
That's cool.
Cool.
I use Omnisphere, but
Omnisphere. Oh, I want Omnisphere. When I was sort of learning in college, we had a big lab that was set up, and we had Omnisphere, and I really miss having Omnisphere.
I think you would love it, because like you can get so deep with it. you know, and just you can create your own sound. I mean, it's great. But I'm not a programmer. I think we're a lot similar in that way. Like we just like to make it work, and I don't want to worry about all that stuff.
I use presets all the time.
Presets.
I mean, I get people who come on my Twitch channel. Oh, you only use well, I shouldn't say that because the people who do that are usually very nice. But hey, you only use presets. I notice you only use presets. Why would I spend an hour tweaking this when it sounds great? This was done by somebody who's way better at this than me.
That's what they do.
And it works in my piece.
Right.
I don't care if somebody else uses it. You know, I was just, what was it? The soundtrack? Mass Effect, the most recent Mass Effect game. I saw somebody playing it on Twitch or YouTube or something, and I was like, I know that patch.
Yep.
I know that patch. It's from, you know, Signal or whatever. And it's like, is that bad? Maybe on that level, maybe you could have hired
if you
somebody.
just swap it straight from the patch and don't tweak, or I think Vocalese Vocalese from Heavy Odyssey. I think that ended up in this game soundtrack too.
Yeah. Oh, that's everywhere. And you know, that one is very tweakable. You know, you just choose a different key and move it a little bit, and no one's gonna know. Yeah. It's fine. And that's again going back to the idea of like just use the presets. It's fine. If you like to geek out and like go in and totally make your own, that's cool too. I mean, that's a great skill right now. That's a very marketable skill right now. Go get good at that. That's not me. Right. Because like you, I grew up listening to the 90s soundtracks of, you know, Mark Isham and John Williams and Hans Zimmer and all these people who were very more sort of traditional
orchestral.
Yeah, I mean, my goal when I was in college, I did want to do commercial music, but it was to be the person who gets hired to just write the orchestra. If I could just write things down on paper and hand it to people, that would be awesome. But it's not the world we live in, so that's not what I do. But that would be great.
Those days are over, man. I mean, it's still a viable skill, though. I mean, you could still get hired for that, but but 95% of
I think
you don't need to know that stuff.
We get more competition from like these Eastern European orchestras that have really low rates. You know, I think it's becoming a little bit more achievable for regular people. But I will straight up say, on no soundtrack that I have ever produced that you will see on like my Bandcamp page or anything, or is there anything more than sampled libraries? None of those instruments are real. Yep. I have never been. I would love to be hired. By the way, if anyone wants to hire me to write orchestral music on paper, I can do that too. Cool. That would be a wonderful dream, right? Like that would be great.
I'm sure there's an audience out there, man. Like, trust me, that's the thing. That's another thing we can tell composers: go find your audience.
Yeah, go find them. Yeah,
who loves your work, and that will pay for it. So this is my last question. Let me ask you.
Okay.
So, how do you feel about working for free?
This is such a hard question.
I know.
So I know there are the people who will condemn you to the deepest circle of hell forever considering that. Mm-hmm. I'm just going to say I have worked for free. I have done it. And I will say that the times that I have done it, I'm not going to say which projects they were, but I was in the end compensated.
Later down the road.
Sale, by a soundtrack sale or by getting another game. So I'm not going to be a person high on their horse saying that you should never work for free.
But don't expect that anything will come from that, even if you do. Yeah.
And understand that it needs to be, I guess what I would encourage people to think of it as is it's a trade-off. Like this is costing you something. You are signaling to this person that you are willing to give away what you do, and it is also costing everyone else who does your job something because you are making
devalues it.
You are. That is real. That is not a fake thing. When people say that is real. It is easy for someone who makes their living making music to say never work for free. It's very easy, and it's very hard to not get a job because you wouldn't do it for below market rate or whatever. I'm a big believer in artistic and creative freedom. If you want to work for free and that is okay for you, I don't think that you should be looked down upon for doing it because it's your choice. It's your art. It's no one else's art. No one else gets to tell you what to do with it. So that's a difficult thing, and I think that I could not be working today if I had not worked for free.
Understood.
At one point or it just wouldn't. I would not be scoring.
It's a trend. I mean, I've noticed like when I'm looking for jobs, but you kind of have to work for free if you're just getting started, maybe to get your portfolio together or create a project. But I've noticed that a lot of people like film, especially film, because now that
really that's interesting because I see it on the game like classifieds a lot too.
I think it's just everywhere because we're in that point now where it's great that we can all do this now. Like everybody can just get a video camera or video camera, geez, DSLR and shoot a Hollywood blockbuster movie. But the thing is, most of these people 20 years ago wouldn't be doing this, and if you were going to get a job, good luck because there's only Hollywood and they pay. But we're at a point now where everybody's doing it. So they're not going to have money because they're just out there like everybody else, Well,
and there's a difference between working for free for like, I'm in games, like a small indie team, right? That are all, this is a passion project for them.
Yes.
That is different than working for EA for free. So I think that's maybe more where the sort of high horse, I'm going to condemn you for working for free comes in. Like if you go to somebody who's going to make a gazillion dollars off a game and say, I'll do the soundtrack for free, I'm less okay with that because those people should be compensating you because you are adding to the value. You are also adding to the value of a small indie game, but so is everyone else on the team. People say don't do rev share too, right? Like don't do revenue sharing projects, but that seems like a pretty fair way. That seems fair to me.
Yeah.
I'm going to straight up say, STAXEL is I'm on a rev share deal with basically. Okay. I'm happy with it. Like I that seems fair to me as long as the rate that rev share is at is fair. Right. I don't see why if STAXEL sells 0 copies, like why should I be compensated? Because I obviously didn't add a lot of value to the project. So
just more of for you, it's a personal opinion. If it works for you, then do it. If not, then just maybe stray away from it. Okay. Yeah. I mean, that's about where I sit too. I decided to ask because that's a big debate on what we do. And
well, I applaud you for asking. That's not an easy question to ask.
I know. Well, I mean, for you, like you said, like you actually do this for a living, and you see the effects of that. You see, since everybody's working for free, and budgets are probably really low, or they're like, hey, we'll just work for free. And if you say, well, no, I need that, well, fine, we'll find somebody else. Well, maybe you shouldn't work for that person anyway because they're not going to value what you do.
That's true. That's very true. I mean, I've had people come to me and say, what are your rates? And I give them my rates, and my rates are on a sliding scale. And there's other things on there that cause the upfront cost to be less if you're giving me more back end or you're letting me sell the soundtrack or you're letting me do something, like my rates move. And I've had people tell me that even the lowest rate is just insane. Like, how can you charge that much? And I'm like, well, that's okay. Thanks for contacting me. We are not a good fit.
Yeah.
That's okay. That's
great.
And
if they want you, they'll pay.
Yeah. And if they wanted the person who did, whatever game or movie or film or thing, they would pay. And if they're not willing to pay, that's okay. That's all right. Maybe they're doing a passion project.
Right.
Okay.
Cool.
Great. Awesome.
Cool.
So,
well, thanks, Curtis. I really appreciate it. So where can people find you, and where can your website, YouTube?
Yeah, I've got my website, curtisschweitzer.com, which is just sort of my general place. It's pretty minimalist. It's got a little portfolio up there. There's a link there to like my Bandcamp if people want to buy stuff. You always got to
plug it,
sell stuff. I'll plug my Bandcamp. I've got a bunch of albums, both game soundtracks and other things. Going back to STAXEL, I would really like to just really promote that. That's a really great project by a group of developers who really actually care. Cool. I'm in their dev Discord all the time. I'm in it right now, and they're right now just talking about player feedback and how they want to address it and how they want to make the game better. So they are wonderful people, and I would just really like to sort of boost their signal as much as possible because I think it's a really great game. I think if people like sort of a Minecraft, if people like sort of a Stardew Valley, it's at a really interesting sort of intersection of that and maybe like a Harvest Moon kind of style game. So if that's kind of your game, I would encourage you to go see if it's good. If you own Starbound, you probably already know about it because you got a 25% off coupon in your Steam library. But yeah, I'd really like to sort of boost that signal. I guess maybe the only other project would be I just finished up some work for Opaque Space on their VR game Earthlight. They're doing like a more Earthlight stuff. I think you can get the original Earthlight. I don't think you can get their new one because I think it was a private contract sort of deal. But they do excellent work. They're a wonderful team. All the people who work on that are fantastic and really do care about making something it's amazing how much you just see them all talking about how much they want to make their players' lives better. And I really appreciate when I see that. It's not how can we sell this, how can we make more money. It's like how can we make this better for the people who have already bought it and are never going to give us another dollar. I just think that's a really nice attitude. So both those teams, STAXEL and Earthlight, I would just really like to commend for being awesome. So
cool. All right. Well, thanks again, man. Thanks for taking the time out today to speak with me.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it.
I loved it. It was
cool.
fun.